Hi there. This video is titled Gnosticism and the Seven Daughters of Earth. Each daughter represents a possible reaction to our existential situation and the fact that we want and we don't want, and we have and we don't have, and how we react to that on the mental, psychological level, and indeed spiritual level ultimately as well. The colours that you see here actually are the colours of the rainbow, and starting from left to right, from base to most spiritual, if you want to put it like that. Although some people would take umbrage at that classification, I can tell you for that. Anyway, so we start off here with the red box, which represents Satanism. In 1969, Anton LaVey published a book called The Satanic Bible. And basically, he was really talking about the elephant in the room, which was basically that human beings are selfish and we want things, and there's an end to it. We shouldn't resist. We shouldn't resist the formula, which he's implied but didn't really suggest, as it were. Basically, you want things, you get things, and you have things. Okay, it's a simple philosophy. Actually, not at all original, because he swiped it from Nietzsche and Aleister Crowley, and they swiped it from way back as a sort of there's a cult in ancient Greece and in ancient in Middle Ages of India that also had the same simple philosophy. Want to get, have. And to which I would reply, you lose as well. You can lose it all. You can gain it, but you can lose it all. To which Anton LaVey might reply, smilingly, well, rinse, repeat, the thrill is in the chase. So it doesn't matter if you lose. Basically just follow the chase. Want, get, have, and then have not, and then repeat, rinse. And that's basically the simple philosophy of materialism in a nutshell, really, and indeed secularism, I suppose. And it's something which people can identify with very strongly. Although at the time, of course, it was shocking in 1969 because people were still pretty sort of religious, basically. And now they're not at all, really. And as far as getting is concerned, I've got down here sorcery, social networking, and self-promotion. And of course, Anton LaVey was good at self-promotion. He sort of started it all. Well, he didn't really, because Aleister Crowley started it all by being the wickedest man in the world. And before him, there's been lots of people that decided that self-promotion through notoriety is the way to go. But of course, nowadays, it's hard to be notorious. Basically, goes, and nothing really shocks. Although I have to say, there is a class issue here, because whereas an actor in Hollywood can be outrageous, or a pop star can be outrageous, if you or I ever dare to be outrageous, we just get deplatformed by YouTube, Google management. So, if you're rich, you tend to fall upwards. You tend to benefit from being notorious. Whereas if you're a poor person like me, they just muzzle you. Okay, so definitely class comes into it, and of course social networking. Well, it's who you know, isn't it? Really, at the end of the day, and it's who you bump into at the right parties. Meeting the right people. Sorcery. Well, I think when you're taking care of the self promotion and the social networking, sorcery is probably the cherry on the cake. But without doing the other two, without tying up your camel, it's not much good praying to Allah. You see what I mean? Anyway, so that's the sort of base instinct. That's to go with the flow of your carnal desires, which is the whole point of Anton LaVey's philosophy and religion. In fact, live by indulgence. So you want, you get, you have. Um, Now, moving on up, I've got here sort of humanism. It's not strictly humanism, but it's humanistic, I suppose, which is, the usual thing, which is I want, and get, and have. And but this is usually excused, because when you have something, you're contributing to the general haveness of humanity. So if you see, there's a big sort of pool of things that humanity has, and in your small way or in a big way, you're contributing to that pool of things that humanity has. It could be cultural, it could be media orientated, it could be scientific, it could be political, it could be economic, anything like that. So you want something, you get it, and you have it. And whatever it is, intellectual property or real property or some kind of scientific discovery, or artistic property, basically you're contributing to the whole of humanity, in your own little way, which is what I call humanist. So it's kind of a sort of, it's a bit more altruistic than just doing it for yourself. You're sort of doing it for the greater glory of man as a species, as it were, or at least you can think that. To which, of course, along comes a virus, along comes a meteorite, along comes nuclear war, and your humanity is going, goes back to the Dark Ages in a fortnight, or less. And that's it really. And then somebody nukes the Google servers in Silicon Valley, and that's it. Good night, humanity. So coming on to it, moving further up the scale, as it were, up the chakras. It's like me. You come to me, which is also lots of people. You want things, you don't, or you fail to get them, and you don't have them, and this leads to frustration and rage. And this is me, folks. This is why I'm on Tegretol and Prozac. Why I suspect a lot of people are on the same drugs, because they're rageful, because they're frustrated, because they're losers, basically, or they perceive themselves to be losers, when in fact even they may not be losers. It depends what you mean by loss and gain anyway. And this, of course, I haven't defined what is meant by loss and gain here. I've just made certain assumptions. But majority of people like me are frustrated, angry, looking for any way of escaping their rage and fury by entertainment and blaming people and getting into political extremism, etc., etc., finding a cause, anything which is greater than their own wretched state, as they perceive it or perceive themselves. The self-loathing comes in here, of course. So we move on up here to Buddhism. Okay, and Buddhism says that we have to acknowledge that we want things. We're hardwired to want things, but we just let go. We let go of grasping. We let go completely, not only of wanting things, but also of the general sort of feeling of grasping and avarice, which goes with wanting. We just simply let go. We breathe out and we let it all go. We acknowledge it, but we let it go. And that equals freedom. And there's no doubt about it that Buddha basically hit the nail on the head. Basically, if you let go of grasping, let go of wanting, when wanting is sort of grasping, because you're grasping in the future, as it were, by wanting. So you don't have to get, and you don't have to have, and you don't have to have not. You simply go into the Buddha consciousness, which is freedom. But this doesn't mean to say that you don't have things, or you don't want, get, and have. It's just that you don't have any attachment. You don't sort of mind if you have not, because in any case you've gotten rid of the idea of you've let go of the idea of wanting and having anyway. So that's brilliant. It's a brilliant philosophy. Of course, LaVey will probably say, well, it's a bit like Satanism, really, because I don't really care if I lose everything. If I lose my fortune, if I gain and lose a fortune, I don't care. It's all the thrill of the chase. So But I don't think it's quite the same, Mr. LeVay. I think you'll find that Buddhism is not really the same as Satanism, although it does have a kind of an interesting overlap there, I suppose. And then you, on the sort of higher than that, is Samkhya Yoga, sadhana, which means way of the yoga. And Samkhya is a basic Hindu philosophy, and the idea is that you become aware of your breath, and philosophically you realise that you want your breath. Well, you've got it, so that you have it, and you have it in the now. And the basic idea of this is to come to the conclusion that you are not what you want, you are not what you get, and you are not what you have. Because at base you are the breath. That is really all that you have is your own breath, and everything else is borrowed, stolen, or in other ways acquired, either ethically or non-ethically. But really, you've got to return to that base of breathing, and deciding that what you do have is the breath. And that's a pretty interesting way of dealing with it, dealing with the existential problem of having and having not. It doesn't mean you have to believe in the Buddha, or follow or believe in anything. You don't have to follow Anton LaVey, which is good. You just follow your breath. Okay, your breath is the cause greater than yourself, really, which is pretty spiritual and pretty existential as well. As I say, you could be an atheist and have this philosophy close to your heart as well. And then going on higher than that is mysticism, Gnosticism. You want God, you have God. That's the basic formula. And you may say, I've got all these questions here. Who is God? What is God? When is God? Which God? How God? All these questions cloud the young girl's mind. And basically, you can just draw a line straight through all that. Because you don't need to ask these metaphysical questions or speculate on anything. You simply want God and you have God. And this is the Gnostic realization. And I suppose if you want to define God, it's other than self. It's this entity that's other than self. And this realization is in fact the basis of soul awareness. So basically, you have a triangle here. You have self, and you have God, and you have soul. And soul is the bridge between self and God. It's the realization of God, and the realization that God is a higher power. And when you acknowledge that higher power, you basically, again, you won't not want things because you're hardwired to want things. So you'll want and you'll want to get and you'll want to have, but you'll always come back to the prayer that want God, have God. You already have everything that you want, no less. And then finally, we have here, this is a very interesting one, really. This is the basis of religion, and possibly some would say the basis also of humanism, is that you want, get, have for someone else. That's the key phrase here. And so you end up having for someone else. I have for someone else. And that is a very powerful thing and is the basis of all compassion, I suppose. It's the basis of religion. So you don't have things for yourself, you have things for other people. You want things for other people, you get things for other people. And I know this people will say, oh, this means you're going to be a doormat. But I think you do have. You have for someone else. And this is the basis of religion. I'm reminded of the very great, of a fantastic line in Angels and Demons, where the head of the Vatican security force says to your man, to your hero, well, I don't know what your religion is, but my religion helps millions of people all around the world. What does your religion do? And I was thinking, well, that's interesting. What does your religion do, Mr. Atheist, Mr. Secularist, Mr. Humanist? Our religion has been helping millions of people for hundreds of years, in fact, because the Roman Catholic Church was through the monasteries was helping thousands of people all through the Hundred Years' War, for example, in the Middle Ages. So I mean, for many, many years, doing the best they can with the tools they have been helping people. They've been wanting, getting, and having for other people for hundreds of years. But of course, against that, a lot of people say this is hypocrisy because it's still you wanting stuff, even if it's for someone else. Okay, I'm not sure whether that's splitting hairs or being devil's advocate. People have written extensively about the selfishness of wanting things for other people, and the selfishness even of being a doormat for other people, because in fact you are gaining something from the doormat situation that you find yourself in, that you're contributing in every day by doing things for other people and not for yourself. So we get into sort of new age argument that you should do things for yourself as well as for other people, and it's a balance to be struck. And interestingly enough, in a way, this sort of almost brings me back to the base chakra, as it were, with Anton LaVey and his cult of selfishness, because you are wanting, getting, and having, and you need to find a balance between these things that you want for yourself and these things that you want for others. But in actual fact, although in this world that could be seen to be the most spiritual answer to our hard wiring of wanting, I still think that of these colours, the one that's slightly down is mysticism and Gnosticism. And note that it isn't pretending to be the apex or the apex of the triangle, the sort of the ultimate. It's slightly less than ultimate in this world. You want God and you have God. And it's a little thing that you can say every day as a sort of mantra. Want God, have God, and when you realise that perhaps God is everything, then if you have God, you have everything, because God is the bindu, is the point within the sphere of everything, including the finite world to the demiurge. So and certainly transcendental to those worlds. So really you think you want things in this world, but really what you really want is God, you see. And you already have God just by going into soul awareness through introspection and perhaps through breath awareness as well, where you realize that you aren't anything that you want or get or have. You are basically the breath which you have. You are alive now and you're breathing. And you're aware that you're breathing, and that's going into soul awareness. But I thought almost at this point in my contemplation, I thought of the Eucharist. You might like to, every day, you might like to just take a piece of bread or plain wafer, and you might sort of say to yourself, I want you, God. I love you, God. And then you take the wafer and you say to yourself, I have you, God. Which is also very symbolic, which connects you actually to the earth, because the wafer is made of wheat and the wheat comes from the earth, and all that is harvested and it grows and it's a growing thing and it's a plant and it synthesizes sunlight and blah blah blah. But that's a little exercise you might want to do. So you actually just you have your little wafer in front of you. You might want to light a candle or incense, whatever you want to do. And just say, I want you, God. I love you, God. And then you take the wafer and you say, I have you, God. It's a symbolic Eucharist. I'm not claiming it's sort of transubstantiation enters into it here. I'm just saying that it's sort of a symbol, basic, of the fact that when everything else is taken away from you, and eventually your life will be taken away from you by nature and the forces of nature and the forces of the demiurge when they're done with you, when they're done with sucking out whatever they can suck out from you and your life, all you'll have left is God. You won't even have the wafer. You won't even have your breath. You won't have this world. You won't be able to want, to get, and to have. You will cease to exist as far as this earth is concerned. And then all you'll have left, basically, is having experienced soul awareness on the Gnostic level, you will have God. and that's all that you'll have left. Basically, there is that which remains, as Aleister Crowley put it, and that is God. But, as I said before, don't spend time, in fact, like I do, speculating on the whys and the wherefores and the whens and whiches, which God. Just accept that you have God, and if you have God, you have everything. So it really didn't take much effort to have everything. And there's no need to get frustrated, and there's no need to get angry, like I do, because I haven't, because I perceive myself as a loser. Don't be like that, because if you have God, you have everything. And basically, you will have God when everything else has gone. Okay. So I just thought I'd end my contemplation on this spiritual message, really. But I mean, I finally want to say I'm not judging Anton LaVey and his cult of selfishness, and saying that the only thing to do is to have things, because we are hardwired to want to have things and to go out and get them. And so I suppose, if you end up, receiving an Oscar for Best Picture, then don't throw the Oscar down on the stage saying, I don't want this, because you just be a hypocrite, because of course you wanted it. And that's, but you also wanted to make the movie, and you made the movie, and then people thought it was a good movie, and then you won the Oscar, right? And that's all. And then you go home and put it on your mantelpiece and say, "Oh, that's okay, right?" And now I want to make another movie, but not because I want to win another Oscar. I want to make another movie because I like making movies, right? And so you could say that's selfish. You could say that you have the practical energy to get out and go out and get things for yourself, and you're not kind of like just going to sit around smoking pot and drawing welfare. You want to go out there and do something, and you might even want to contribute to humanity through your filmmaking, for example. But then coronavirus comes along, and you can't make any movies, and or meteorite hits the earth, you can't make anything, or we have a nuclear war, and there's nothing left. And then when there's nothing left, well, you're sitting in your, I don't know, your nuclear bunker, thinking, well, what the hell has it all been about? And it's all just been about feeding the demiurge with fear, of course. But then when the demiurge is done with you, well, then you're done. And basically then you can say, well, the only thing I have left is God. Of course, with all these things like Buddhism and yoga and mysticism, it takes discipline. Every day you have to remind yourself of this truth. And that's kind of the tricky part, because, you will be distracted by your wants and your desire to get things and to have things. There's no doubt about that. So in the midst of all this distraction, you have to keep reminding yourself that you don't have anything really except God. And at the moment, you don't have anything except your breath and your actual existential presence on this planet. Okay, your ontological status has not yet been challenged. In other words, you're still alive. You're not dead. So that's all you can basically say. But you have to keep reminding yourself every day of this. Otherwise, you're going to get sucked into the vortex of frustration and rage, which I experience, which I must say, Anton LaVey's followers don't have, because they don't even care if they lose things. They don't even care if they have a fortune and lose it all. It's the thrill of the chase, that it's wanting to get things. It's going out and getting things, or trying to get things. Even if you fail, it doesn't matter. So in a sense, they're not afflicted with too much frustration or rage either. Which is why people say, why do ask a question when, why do good things happen to bad people? Because, sometimes the materialist really, really comes up trumps, actually, or comes up Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump, when he fails upwards, like all rich people. When he's outrageous, he gets on TV. He doesn't get muzzled like you and me. When we get outrageous, Google just shuts us down. So I suppose we go in a complete full circle, really, with this, seven daughters of Earth, and of course, remember, these are all seven daughters of Earth, okay, and this is all stuff which belongs to the FW, to the finite worlds, to the demiurge. So this video, I suppose, I don't know if this video has been any help to you at all, really. I mean, if you go out and do the spiritual exercises, that might sort of calm you down. It might take you from where I am, which is rageful and frustrated, into a new paradigm of peace and calm, and that would be good, and that would be fine. But at the same time, as I said, I'm not judging the people that want, get, and have. You know, that's just the way they are, and I respect that, and I respect their philosophy that lies perhaps behind their wanting, getting, and having. It's just the way things are in this world.